Animism. What is it? In this video, we will discuss what animism is, what it is not, clarifying exactly who would potentially subscribe to animism, also when the word was coined and the problems with that word. Let's start with what animism is. Here's the definition that we should break down. A belief system. Well, this ism tells you that it's a system of belief. Anim comes from the Latin, and it means something like mind or soul or spirit, something like consciousness. So here we can write soul or mind or consciousness. Think of animations. These are drawings that move, such as cartoons. Animations means that there's an object that moves. It has a mind of its own. It has potentially a will or a consciousness. There's a thing it wants to do. So an animate object is something that moves itself. And an inanimate object is something that does not move itself. For example, mountains, lakes, tornadoes, forests, trees, ecosystems, the wind. These are inanimate objects, unlike animate objects which move themselves like a raccoon or a human being. So animism is the view that there is a life force in inanimate objects, just like there are inanimate objects. And that life force could be something like a spirit or a soul or a mind or consciousness, coming from the Latin anim. So that's what animism is. Now let's talk about what animism is not. Unlike animism, which is the view that there are souls in inanimate objects like mountains, it is not a religion. This is really hard to define. See my video on religion. Animism is not hylozoism, which is the view that the universe itself is alive and so might have a mind or a soul. Animism is not panpsychism, which is the view that every single thing that exists has a soul or a mind or a consciousness. Animism is not vitalism, which is the idea that you cannot explain the natural world, the physical stuff like mountains and wind, without the existence of something like a soul or a mind. So animism is not this, it's not this, it's not this, it's not a religion. There are many religions that are animistic, but animism is not itself a religion. It's just a worldview. It's a way to view the world. And the way you're viewing the world, if you're an animist, is such that inanimate objects that don't move themselves, like bushes, also have a spirit that is possible. Let's clarify something. You can be a Christian and also be animistic. An animistic person, or someone who subscribes to animism, is just saying that consciousness or the mind or the soul is not reserved only for human beings. That also something like a tree or a bush could have the embodiment of a mind, consciousness, soul, spirit. In fact, if you look at your Old Testament, you would see that there was a burning bush talking to Moses. Well, that means that there is a spirit in the bush, at least momentarily. So you can be Jewish or Christian and also believe in animism, that sometimes some inanimate objects have something like a spirit in them that would care about what happens to humanity and might give you a message that could harm you or hurt you. All over the world, there are people who believe that there are inanimate objects embodied with a spirit or a mind. Lastly, let's talk about who coined this term, animism, and problems with the view. In 1871, a scholar by the last name Tyler wrote a book, Primitive Culture, And in it, he articulates something like the evolution of religion, and he explains that complex religions of today, like Christianity, evolved from more primitive cultures like animism. In other words, back in ancient times, people started thinking of dreams and dead people's spirits as continuing on and sending them messages that there's another world from which you can receive messages. And this idea, Tyler explains, turns into, through civilization, complex religions. Now, a problem with that view is, one, it talks about religions like Christianity as evolving from previous philosophical views like animism. And if that's true, that would mean something like there is no real religion, God in the heavens and Jesus being a part of the Trinity. That sort of picture would go away if you thought that Christianity just evolved from previous thoughts. A second problem is that the theory can never be tested. We can't go back to the times before Christianity and before Judaism and before Zoroastrianism and before Mithraism and investigate what started animism in the first place. So we can't test the theory, but it also assumes that complex current day religions are not true religions. They're just evolution of primitive thought. A third thing is that it's wrong to call animistic religions primitive. There are people today practicing. If you want an alternative view, check out Durkheim.